now claim they found indisputable evidence that the story of Noah's Ark was not a cautionary tale about the consequences of forsaking God, but a verifiable historical event.
The worldwide tradition of a global flood stops being just a myth and starts being a memory.
High in the rugged mountains of eastern Turkey, snow covers the jagged slopes of Mount Ararat. It's an isolated, windswept region, remote, quiet, and untouched by time. But beneath its silence, something unusual was found. A massive boat-shaped formation lies frozen in the earth, stretching more than 500 feet long. To the naked eye, it looks like the outline of a ship, buried, tilted slightly, as if it ran aground centuries ago and never moved again. When word of the discovery first spread, it caused more confusion than excitement. Was this just another strange rock formation, carved by wind and water? Or could it be something far older, something tied to one of the oldest and most dramatic stories ever told? For centuries, Mount Ararat has been linked to a single legend, the place where Noah's Ark is said to have come to rest after the Great Flood. That story has echoed through cultures for thousands of years, a tale of destruction, survival, and divine intervention. Most dismissed it as mythology, but what if the mountain itself had been keeping part of that story hidden all along? When scientists began studying the site, the questions only deepened. Measurements matched the Ark's biblical proportions almost exactly. Tests revealed signs of organic material deep within the soil, and advanced radar scans later showed something that would shock even the most skeptical researchers. Whatever lies beneath Mount Ararat isn't ordinary rock. It's something that seems, at the very least, designed, and it might hold answers to one of humanity's greatest mysteries. The story began in 1959. A Turkish army captain named İlhan Durupinar was flying over the eastern mountains when something strange caught his eye. Below, on a barren slope near the Iranian border, he saw what looked unmistakably like the outline of a huge ship. It was resting high above sea level, 6,000 feet up, in a place where no vessel should ever be. Durupinar took photographs and passed them to the Turkish government. Soon after, the images reached researchers in the United States. From above, the formation looked deliberate. Its curved edges, pointed bow, and symmetrical shape were too precise to dismiss as coincidence. The story hit local papers, then international headlines. People began calling it the possible resting place of Noah's Ark. Curiosity spread fast. In the 1960s, camera crews from the BBC and National Geographic trekked up the slopes to see it for themselves. They found a long, boat-shaped ridge measuring around 538 feet, almost identical to the 300 cubits described in the Book of Genesis. Even scientists who doubted the Ark connection admitted the shape was remarkable. Over the years, tourists, believers, and explorers continued to visit the site, which became known as the Durupinar Formation, named after the captain who first spotted it. Some left convinced they'd seen divine proof. Others walked away certain it was only a geological illusion. For decades, the debate faded in and out of the spotlight. But in the early 2000s, technology advanced. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and chemical soil testing made it possible to look beneath the surface without breaking it apart. And when researchers finally did, the mountain gave up its first real secret, one that neither believers nor skeptics were ready for. When scientists first began to examine the Durupinar site closely, they didn't expect much. To most geologists, the formation looked like a natural ridge, the product of landslides, erosion, and time. But once the first measurements were taken, their confidence started to waver. The ridge was exactly 538 feet long, its width and curvature nearly identical to the dimensions given for Noah's Ark in the Book of Genesis. The resemblance was unsettling. Professor Faruk Kaya, one of the early Turkish researchers, later described walking along the top of the mound as like walking on the spine of something vast buried under the earth. Samples from the surface revealed high concentrations of limonite, an iron-rich mineral that often forms when iron objects decay underground. Some argued this could mean the presence of ancient metal remains. Others said it was simply iron in the local soil. The line between geology and possibility blurred further. Kaya and his team mapped every contour, logging coordinates and comparing them with biblical proportions. The numbers matched too neatly to ignore. But correlation alone wasn't proof. Was nature capable of creating something so geometrically precise? Or had human hands once shaped it, a relic preserved by time and mud? For decades, that question remained unanswered. The technology to see what lay beneath simply didn't exist. Skeptics dismissed the idea entirely, while others held to quiet belief. Then in 2021, a new generation of researchers arrived on Mount Ararat. They weren't chasing legends or miracles, just data. Armed with advanced scanning equipment and a mission to let the Earth speak for itself, they began to probe the ground below. And what they found would reignite one of the world's oldest mysteries. In 2021, the Durupinar site was no longer just a curiosity for adventurers or believers. It became the focus of a serious, international scientific project. Researchers from Istanbul Technical University, Agri Ibrahim Seçen University, and Andrews University in the United States joined forces to study the formation using modern, non-invasive technology. Their goal was simple: find out whether this massive, boat-shaped mound was a quirk of geology or something else entirely. The team began with core drilling, extracting narrow cylinders of soil from deep within the structure. When the samples reached the lab, the results immediately caught attention. The soil from inside the formation contained almost 3 times more organic material and potassium than the surrounding ground. Those readings, the scientists explained, often appear where wood or other organic material has decayed over time. Lead researcher Andrew Jones told Fox News Digital, "These results indicate the deposition of decayed wood or organic materials, consistent with the preservation of a large ancient structure within the mudflow." That single line reignited the world's fascination. If the formation had once contained wood, what kind of structure could it have been? To dig deeper, the team deployed ground-penetrating radar, a technology capable of creating 3D maps beneath the surface. As the machines hummed across the slope, the monitors began to reveal strange shapes. Instead of the random scatter expected in natural terrain, the radar displayed clean, organized lines, like beams or decks stacked on top of each other. Some sections even showed right angles, a feature almost unheard of in natural rock formations. Andrew Jones paused as the data filled the screen. He wasn't ready to call it proof of the ARK, but he admitted the scans looked exactly like what you'd expect if this was a man-made boat. The findings sent a ripple through the global scientific community. For the first time, hard data hinted that something built, not just shaped by nature, might be buried beneath Mount Ararat. The first radar scans were met with disbelief. When the images appeared on the monitors, the researchers expected to see random rock layers. Instead, they saw symmetry, lines that ran parallel for hundreds of feet, sections that curved and then met at perfect angles, like the ribs of a ship. The ground-penetrating radar revealed what looked like 3 distinct decks, separated by uniform gaps. A central corridor ran through the length of the formation, branching into smaller, evenly spaced compartments along the sides. If nature had created this, it had done so with startling precision. To confirm, the team used another tool: electrical resistivity scanning. This technique measures how easily electric current flows through the ground, exposing hidden shapes or voids. The readings matched what radar had already shown: a hollow structure beneath the surface, with layers and divisions consistent with human design. William Crabtree, a soil scientist with the group, studied the data closely. He noticed that the areas corresponding to the ribs of the structure showed unusual resistance, typical of spaces once filled with organic material, possibly wood. He told reporters, "We're seeing density patterns you'd expect from decayed timber. It's exactly what you'd find if this were once a large wooden vessel." The team began digitally reconstructing the subsurface data, building a 3D model of what lay beneath. The result was remarkable: a long, tapered hull with symmetrical sides and a flattened base. It mirrored almost perfectly the shape of a ship grounded on land. The discovery reached international headlines again. Major outlets from NDTV to the New York Post ran stories suggesting that modern technology might have finally found something extraordinary beneath Ararat. But inside the research tent, the scientists stayed cautious. There was no treasure, no visible artifact, just data. And data can be interpreted in many ways. Still, even the skeptics couldn't deny what they saw. The mountain silence now had form. While radar scans painted the outline of something large and deliberate, chemistry began to reveal what it might once have been made of. Scientists collected deeper soil samples from inside and around the Durupinar Formation, sealing each one in sterile containers before shipping them to laboratories for analysis. The results were striking. Soil taken from within the structure showed 3 times more organic material than samples gathered just a few meters away. It also contained unusually high levels of potassium, a chemical released when wood and plant matter decompose. To geologists, that meant only one thing. Something organic had once been trapped and slowly broken down within that mound. Professor Farouk Kaya explained it plainly to the Jerusalem Post. The elevated potassium and lowered pH values indicate long-term organic decomposition, as you would expect if a large wooden structure were buried here. The findings didn't stop there. The soil inside the formation was significantly more acidic, another hallmark of decayed biological material. In contrast, the surrounding earth tested almost neutral, typical of ordinary mountain soil. National Geographic later summarized the data in one line. The chemical signature of Durupinar is unlike any natural formation in the region. Radiocarbon testing on the organic traces dated them between 3,500 and 5,000 years old. Roughly the same period the ancient flood story places the Ark's arrival on land. It wasn't proof, but the coincidence was hard to ignore. The mountain wasn't just shaped like a ship. It carried a chemical memory of one, the remnants of something built, buried, and forgotten. But if a vessel truly rests beneath those slopes, what else might still be sealed inside? When excavation resumed months later, the team decided to go deeper. They brought in a combination of thermal imaging, sonar, and core drilling, each tool chosen to read what the human eye couldn't see. What emerged from those tests pushed the limits of what anyone had imagined. Roughly 30 feet below the surface, scanners detected a pattern that shouldn't exist in nature. A maze of geometric rooms arranged like honeycomb cells. Each chamber connected to a wider central passage, stretching the length of the formation. Dr. Andrew Jones, leading the analysis, later described it simply. It looked like the skeleton of a ship, one of biblical proportions. Soil from the deeper layers contained marine sediments and traces of clay, evidence that the entire area had once been underwater. Carbon dating placed the materials at around 4,800 years old, eerily close to the supposed time of the Great Flood. Dr. Elena Marquez, a geologist interviewed by BBC Future, called it evidence of a cataclysmic event. But it wasn't just the sediments that stirred debate. One sealed chamber registered strange thermal readings, suggesting a hollow space still intact. Sonar scans hinted at metallic anomalies within it, shapes that reflected sound waves differently from surrounding stone. Turkish archaeologist Dr. İpek Yilmaz observed, "The symmetry is disturbing. This is not a cave, it's built." The discovery reignited global interest. Could a wooden structure, buried for millennia, really have survived in this condition? Or were scientists seeing a coincidence amplified by belief? Whatever the answer, the mountain wasn't finished revealing itself, because even as evidence piled up, the world was splitting between those who believed and those who refused to. As news of the findings spread, the world took sides. Headlines appeared almost overnight. Noah's Ark discovered? Scientists find structure beneath Mount Ararat. Evidence of the flood? Television panels debated the story. Social media buzzed with theories. For some, this was long-awaited confirmation that an ancient story was true. For others, it was another example of wishful thinking wrapped in science. The researchers themselves tried to stay neutral. They emphasized that what they had uncovered were anomalies, not proof. Lead investigator Andrew Jones told reporters, "We're not here to prove scripture, we're here to follow the data." Yet even their caution couldn't stop the excitement. The measurements, the symmetry, the chemical signatures, all seemed too consistent to dismiss. It was enough to make even skeptical observers pause. At the same time, geologists pushed back. Many argued the Durupinar Formation was simply a natural geological fold, shaped by mud flows and erosion over thousands of years. Human behavior doesn't validate a biblical narrative, wrote journalist Tim Newcomb in Popular Mechanics, summarizing the scientific consensus. Still, even critics admitted the evidence was unusually structured for a natural feature. Professor Farooq Kaya took a more measured view. With current dating, we can't claim this is the ARK, but something unique happened here, and we need time to understand it. For the people living near Mount Ararat, the debate didn't matter. The formation had become a point of pride, a reminder that their mountains might hold a piece of history no one fully understands. Science demanded caution, faith demanded belief, and somewhere between the two, the mountain waited, still holding its silence. As the sun set behind Mount Ararat, the hum of equipment faded into the wind. The mountain grew silent again, as if it had reclaimed its secret. The scientists packed up, knowing the mystery was far from solved. Years of research still lie ahead, but one thing is clear: the data is unlike anything found before. Durupinar is no longer just about faith or geology. It's a reminder of how much of Earth's story remains hidden. Andrew Jones put it best: "We don't know if it's the ARK, but something remarkable is buried here, and it deserves to be understood." From above, the site still looks like a ship carved in stone. Maybe it's a nature. Maybe it's something more. If mysteries like this fascinate you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the past still whispers beneath our feet.